Early morning in California, and a dawn start filming one of the most exciting cars of the year.
This is the new Ford GT, and out there is Laguna Seca. We're just going to stick it in track mode and go and do some driving. Wing up, suspension down, go! Oh, this is exciting! What you very quickly realise with this car is it's not just a run-of-the-mill supercar like a 488 or a Lamborghini Huracan or an R8 V10. It's a much, much more mechanical supercar than that. It's a proper hardcore track one. It really is. And it's got hydraulic power steering, so the steering feel is lovely. Well, let's think about what we've got going on here. We've got an awful lot of aerodynamics working on the car to clean it all up. It feels really, really good. But that engine, I was sceptical about a V6. I'm not sure this is too bad. Through the quick stuff, you can hear the front end scush on the ground in track mode. Oh, it just looks wicked. Right, coming up to the corkscrew. Ooh, braking. Tuck it in, look for the tree, off the cliff. Woohoo! Here it's scush. Squirrel on the track, missing the squirrel. Tuck it down and around down here. Look at this thing go. It's got so much grip. It's got a little bit of push just to keep it safe on the front end, but wow, it goes well. Look at the brakes, it's so stable.
Ford says we should think of the GT not as a downforce car, but as an aero-efficient one. It's designed to channel and use the air as effectively as possible. Inside, the seats don't move. Instead, you move the steering and pedals to fit. And in the back, there's the most controversial element of the whole car, the 3.5-litre EcoBoost V6. Then again, 647 horsepower and 550 pound-foot of torque should help silence the critics. 0 to 60, 3 seconds flat. Top speed, 216 miles an hour.
Look at this thing go so fast in a straight line. I have to say, I'm not sure the engine is the best thing about it, and the transmission doesn't quite kick as hard as I want it to. It's not quite fast and hard enough. What we've got here is a relatively narrow front tyres. They're 245s and massive 325s on the back. Now it needs those big fat ones for traction, and yet it will overcome it. But when you come out of a corner, it comes out really neutrally and nicely. So you come out and it just gets a little bit of opposite, if you like. But most of the time it just feels very, very precise. Really sweet. The turn-in on it is lovely. It's not super, super aggressive, but then it's a road car at the end of the day, but it's a road car not like many other road cars. The more you lean on it, the better it gets. You can pour it into corners and brake all the way to the apex, and it keeps the pressure on those skinnier front tyres a treat. It's just great. You really feel it. Feel the pressure building up, and you can play with the balance of the car really, really accurately, and you're sat so far inboard in it and so far sort of neutrally in the middle of the wheelbase. It feels fantastic. It feels your position in the car just feels like you're almost at the cross points of the axles. So the feeling you get from it is that this is a chassis car, not an engine car. The engine is actually far more characterful than I expected it to be. I'm not sure it feels the full ticket of 650 horsepower. Maybe it's because it doesn't build to this astonishing crescendo at the top end. But it feels fast, it definitely feels fast. So let me tell you a little bit about what it's like on the road. So yesterday we went and drove the Pacific Coast Highway, which everyone says is one of the best roads in the world. It's spectacular, it's also spectacularly busy, which means that you end up just running into traffic, which is fine if you just want to know what the Ford GT behaves like when it's amongst other traffic. And the answer to that, on the whole, is pretty well. I think the thing with driving on the road is you are always aware that this is not where it feels most at home. It feels aggressive and a bit lumpy and ill at ease, and there's a lot of mechanical forces going on. It feels like the engine feels like it's hard bolted to the chassis. The suspension feels like it's rose jointed. It feels very, very tight and precise and positive. And that's lovely on the track, but on the road, it's a bit wearing, and it's very, very quickly obvious this isn't really one of those GT supercars like the R8 or a 911 Turbo that you can go and use every day and do all your stuff with. It's a bit more at you than that.
Later, I parked up to catch a perfect California sunset and have a think about the GT. Yes, it's hardcore, but it inspires confidence. And most importantly, Ford has a supercar that is exciting, extreme, and different to anything else out there.
I think what we need, though, is someone to tell us how this car works. This is Jamal Hamidi, who is the chief engineer of Ford Performance. Now, Jamal, I wanted to find out, it's the most bonkers looking supercar. Where did you start with it?
Really, everything that we did was to optimize the chassis or optimize the aerodynamics of the car.
Yeah, but you can still get the power numbers you wanted. We're using a V6 instead of a V8.
Absolutely. I mean, we knew that we wanted to be significantly over 600 horsepower, and based on all of our experience with the Daytona prototype engines that we had been racing for several years, we were confident that we could land strongly in the 600 horsepower range.
The turbos are actually out in the sort of pods, the outriggers at the side, aren't they?
They're outside the engine, and the intercoolers are in the outboard fenders.
Yeah, because one of the things I think is most fascinating when you walk around it is every single gap you look in, there is some sort of cooler or something, radiator, shoved into everywhere. I assume that cooling is a bit of an issue for the car, or you wanted to get a lot of cooling going through it.
You would never have a hole unless it was feeding a cooler.
Yeah.
So every hole has an intake and typically a heat exchanger and a ducted exhaust. So air is not only managed around the vehicle, but clearly through the vehicle. We wanted downforce, but we wanted efficient downforce, and we didn't want to pay high drag penalties to develop that. And that was one of the reasons that we migrated to a fixed seating position, because that really allowed us to shrink the greenhouse and lower our frontal area.
Is the main gain of track mode then the central gravity drop or the aerodynamic gains?
Yes.
Both.
Yeah.
everything all at once.
Right. We had the technology to have a ride height adjustable suspension, and a 50 millimeter drop in CG is a huge deal. Certainly that's one of the very special parts of this car is when you drop the car 50 mils and what it does with the mechanical grip of the car. This is really the first car that we've done where we've developed a racing car and a production car in parallel. The story of this car is the aerodynamics, and it's the chassis. And that's really what sets this car apart from any other car out there.
You've got to hand it to Ford. It's created a radical supercar that's fundamentally different to anything being produced by McLaren or Ferrari, and that has genuine crossover with the racing version. In fact, I can't think of another supercar that does a better job of bridging the divide. It's beautifully engineered and massively rewarding. It's the Ford GT,